championship success hasn't really been a thing since Hakeem. Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another video of NBA Now. I'm your boy Dom, and we're gonna get right into things here today. So, today. First off, before I get into the video, I just want to say thank you guys for the support. I know it's been a couple days since I uploaded. To be honest, I just missed the streak, and then I was like, alright, I'm gonna take a couple days as a break so I don't get burnt out, and then we're gonna come back strong. So that's what we're doing. We'll come back strong with a Houston Rockets video, and in today's video, we're gonna be talking mostly about two players. The players on the thumbnail, the two players that play the same position but are like the highest potential players on the team, and that's Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green. So if we look at each of these guys individually, right? Jalen Green obviously just picked number 2 overall in the NBA draft for the Houston Rockets. Wanted to go number 1, but according to him, did not want to play in Detroit. So he ended up number 2 to the Rockets to be the James Harden heir apparent, right? That's what I think we're all kind of looking at him as. Okay, James Harden's gone. They go out in the draft. They get a shooting guard. Only one pick earlier than where James Harden was drafted, because Harden was drafted number 3 by the Oklahoma City Thunder. And then obviously eventually traded to the Rockets. We know about that because they didn't want to pay the luxury tax. But he's brought in to be the heir apparent, except for the fact that they already have Kevin Porter Jr., who, the Rockets were talking about using in that James Harden role, right? The guy had a 50-point game last year. He averaged, I want to say, 16 points per game. Let me check. Yeah, so he averaged 16 points per game, almost 17 points per game, 6 assists, and almost 4 rebounds last year. Now, was that only in 26 games? Yes. And was that on a not very successful team? Yes. So you have to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. But you see a guy that really just has potential, right? He was, a lot of people thought that he fell to Cleveland when he got picked up there. And then, what happened there happened, whatever. He got out of there, new situation, goes to the Rockets, does his thing, balls out, and is kind of perceived to, go in that James Harden role. Once he starts balling out like that. But then the Rockets end up with the number 2 overall pick, and it becomes pretty clear that Jalen Green becomes the option that they're going to go with. And so that kind of leaves a weird sort of thing with both the players being pretty similar. I gave you Kevin Porter Jr.'s last year's stats. If we look at Jalen Green, what he did in the G League last year, so in 15 games, he had himself almost 18 points, almost 3 assists, and almost 4 rebounds. So, somewhat similar numbers, obviously, in the G League versus the NBA itself. But at the same time, Jalen Green is younger, I think everybody hands down thinks he has more potential. He's also got a bit more flash to him. You look at the guy and you're like, this guy carries himself like a star or a future star. You know what I mean? He's got that pizzazz that you want as the head of your franchise, and the marketability, right? So, that's not something that we typically talk about when we're talking basketball, but he's got that for the Rockets, right? It's something that Harden has. It's something that most stars typically have. And so he's kind of got that. But, you look at these two guys, and although they play the same position and they're similar heights and they had similar stats last year, although in different areas, one in the NBA, one in the G League, it's interesting, right? It's interesting because it's like, all right, Houston, you're probably going to have to make a decision on if you want to keep Kevin Porter Jr. I think it's a guarantee that Jalen Green's going to be sticking around. But do we see Kevin Porter Jr. as potentially a trade deadline move to another younger team that has a couple young players that aren't really working out for them and wants to go get a guy that can kind of maybe develop into that guy, or is showing really good flashes? Or are you going to you know, kind of sit with this oversaturated two-guard market, especially still having Eric Gordon on the team. Now, if you guys want a video on the John Wall situation, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll make a whole video on that. But to simplify it, he's probably not going to play for the team again, right? And for whatever reasons, right? And how that affects the team, if you want a video, let me know. But, you know, that leaves you with 3 2 guards, and although you were talking about playing Kevin Porter Jr. at the 1, how, like, yes, he had 6 assists this last season. I don't know how well that will work. I think it has potential, but I just don't know what his ceiling is as a playmaker. And so if you can make it work like that, I think that could work out very well. But then you're also taking the ball out of Jalen Green's hands, and I think that you don't want to hurt his development, although I think he'll develop fine. You just don't want to have anything come in the way of that with him being your clear path forward. Now, the nice thing with Kevin Porter Jr. is the guy is fucking dirt cheap. He's making, you know, under $2 million this next season, and then he's making a little over 3 this season after that. So if you were to trade him, it would be nice because you would be able to get some of these heavier contracts probably off the roster with him if you were going for somebody a little bit better, or you're going to be able to get back some stuff, even potentially taking back a contract too when you trade him and getting back really good value for him. So, you know, that's an option for them. How much Houston Rockets fans want to see KPJ go, I don't know. That's just something that I'm not entirely sure about. But, you know, Jalen Green, we expect that, you know, after his rookie contract runs out, he's going to be getting that rookie max. I think he showed the dog in him in the summer league that not every high pick rookie shows, right? There are plenty of guys that are picked that high that don't show it. And he kind of showed that, right? I think his game versus Cade was probably, you know, one of the most interesting just games that we saw in the summer league, right? Obviously, I mean, Davion Mitchell was doing his thing for the Kings, and some of the other teams were doing better than those two teams. But I think just seeing the dog mentality that both the players had, and really them embracing almost some sort of, you know, that rivalry as that 1 and 2 pick is something that we don't see as much anymore in the NBA, and was really, you know, refreshing to see from the two guys. And hopefully it builds on it, especially with them being in separate conferences. You know, maybe one day we'll get an NBA Finals, Jalen Green versus Cade Cunningham, number 1 versus number 2, and we'll get to see something like that play out, and that'd be super cool to see. I think Rockets and Pistons fans would love to see that, whether their team even wins or loses, because that's a lot better than that they've done in quite a while, as obviously the Pistons last success being that 04 finals of winning it, and obviously they were pretty successful after that for a while. And the Rockets, you know, they almost made the finals with James Harden. Probably, I think I said this in a video before, but probably if not the best, one of the best teams to not make the finals due to their own shooting, and, you know, that's their own fault. But and yes, injuries played a factor, whatever. I'm not getting into that conversation right now. But for the most part, you know, one of the best teams to not make the finals. And so they had success with Harden, but for them, you know, championship success hasn't really been a thing since Hakeem, right? And so these teams, well, I would like to say close to 20-year drought, if not, so probably a little bit over a 20-year drought for Houston, and almost a 20-year drought for Detroit, championship-wise. So obviously the markets are hungry, right? The teams, fans want them to go to that highest stage and win, and, you know, those Cade and Jalen obviously give you that opportunity. It's, does Kevin Porter Jr., do you want to keep Kevin Porter Jr.? And so, you know, the title of the video is, who do I think the Rockets' next star is going to be? And I think I've been kind of blatant with this. I think it will be Jalen Green, just because this year Jalen has a very good shot at winning Rookie of the Year, as I think the Rockets will be probably the best of the three teams that got the top 3 picks this year. They just have more veterans on the team. I mean, you have Christian Wood, a guy who can come out and make an all-star team as long as he stays healthy. And, I mean, say you're keeping Eric Gordon. That's a guy that can give you 20 a game. Jayshawn Tate is only going to get better. And, you know, even guys like David Nwaba. You still have Daniel House. You've got other guys like that on the roster. They're going to help you continue to try and find success as you somewhat soft rebuild at this point, because I think, you know, I'd rather be in charge of the Rockets than like the San Antonio Spurs, because, you know, the Spurs are probably one of the least talented teams in the league, but they're probably going to be on par with the Rockets in wins, due to Greg Popovich, and some stuff like that, and some development with their players. But, you know, the Rockets have some guys with potential, right? You've got, I mean, if KPJ takes a third-year step to push himself into a potential all-star situation, or, you know, a borderline, I think, has a guard, he probably is guaranteed not to make it in the West, even if he pushes into a most improved player type of thing. But for him to do that, you know, you're looking at like a 25-point per game guy. And I think Jalen has a good opportunity to do that his rookie season here. Again, I think Eric Gordon can really impair both of them and their development. So I think if Houston truly wants to run them as the 1 and the 2, or, you know, just the backcourt in general, regardless, and kind of run the ball through their hands with Christian Wood down low and kind of fill it in at wings for now, that's not a bad idea. But you cannot, I think you cannot have Eric Gordon at that point, because Eric Gordon is an established player in the league. We know what he can do. He can put up 50 as well in a game. Actually, I want to say he put up 50 in the game that I went to, Nuggets versus Rockets. I want to say he put up 50 in that game. If not, he got pretty damn close. Obviously, that was the day that Kobe Bryant passed away, so rest in peace to the Mamba. But yeah, you look at the Rockets. I think Jalen Green is for sure your next star. And there's just some question marks with KPJ that are gonna either be filled this season, or we're gonna see kind of a Devontae Graham type of situation where you're like, okay, he's a good player, but he's not a star, right? And I think that's kind of what we saw with Devontae Graham and Terry Rozier almost, right? Very similar for what they were doing for the Hornets. They ended up going with Terry Rozier because he was more consistent. Although not a star, but he was more consistent. He was better. He was doing that for him. And then Devontae Graham, although still a good player, obviously, Pelicans went and picked him up. Just wasn't quite that player that Rozier was. And I think we could see a similar thing happen here in Houston, where Kevin Porter Jr. finds himself on a new team here in the next 1 to 2 years and kind of starts to actually find a home. Obviously bouncing from Cleveland to the Rockets, and then probably to one more team before we see him kind of start to pick it up. And I wouldn't be shocked if you know, he becomes a borderline all-star player, or even an all-star player, because he's got I think he's shown the potential to do it. It's just, I think that there's a little bit much of a logjam in Houston, and I think it's going to be one of those situations where Jalen Green is going to come out, he's going to get the fans' respect, he's going to get the owner's respect, he's going to get the coach's respect, and he's just going to kind of win the star job in Houston over KPJ. Though I think it'll be very interesting to see what they can do, and if they can work together, this could be a very, very strong Rockets team going into the future, because you could be looking at 3 potential all-star caliber players in Christian Wood, who is going to be the oldest of the 3, Jalen Green, and Kevin Porter Jr. And with Christian Wood being the oldest of the 3, you know, at this current moment, the guy is only 25, right? So even 5 years from now, when he's probably either in the middle or the late end of his prime, and you're looking at the other 2 guys potentially in their primes at that point as well, that gives you not only a lot of time to put some more talent around them, but a really good chance to be super good at that point. And I think the Rockets just have a very bright future. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys drop a like, subscribe for more. It has been your boy Dom from NBA Now, and I'll catch y'all tomorrow. Peace out.